everyone, welcome back to another what's going to be an amazing episode of the Red Clay Cook-Off. A little different than what we usually do, but nothing shy of fabulous, because what we are about to do, just like we did in a previous episode, is introduce you to 3 ingredients which we are going to use in 3 different recipes, and we're going to do that for 3 episodes. Due to the circumstances of the past year, I'm not able to have a guest, so my guest for today's show and the other 2 shows are in the form of food. So my 3 special guests today are chicken breasts, peas, green peas, and also onions, which are more than just a flavor additive, which we'll talk about more later. So let's go ahead and actually introduce you to these ingredients. First up, the green peas. Next is chicken. And lastly, we have onions. Onions come in many different colors, shapes, sizes. These are sweet Vidalia onions. They're usually my onion of choice. I also really like red onions or Spanish onions. All onions are impart great flavor and are very, very nutritious. So a lot of people just think of them as a flavor additive, but they actually offer a lot of nutrition. So onions in particular are really high in the compound called flavonoids, which is great for anti-cancer benefits, heart health, and many other to boot. Peas. If you're a vegetarian, peas are a great protein source. They're high in fiber, among many other micronutrients, and they're very tasty. They're sweet, called sweet peas for a reason. So those are our second ingredient. And lastly is chicken breast. Now, chicken breast is probably one of the most commonly chosen meat sources of protein for families. It's pretty inexpensive a pound, by the pound, and it's low fat, both it's low in saturated fat and calories, so it's great if you're watching your weight, and it's heart healthy. So we did go with skinless chicken breasts today. Now, I have about 3 large chicken breasts in this bowl, and I've cubed it. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna prepare each one of these ingredients. This is already cubed. What I'm gonna do to start is just season it with a little salt and pepper. And we're gonna get this sauteing while we go on to the other ingredients. So I'm going in with maybe about a half a teaspoon of pepper. This is a matter of preference, but I wouldn't overdo any more than a half a tablespoon, not half a tablespoon, that's way too much. Half a teaspoon of salt. So I'm going in with kosher salt. Boop, boop, boop. All right. Now I'm gonna mix it. I'm just gonna use a spoon just to get the salt and pepper evenly distributed over the chicken. And I have a saute pan here on over medium. It's heating up. I like to get my pans hot before I go in with meat in particular, really most things, but meat in particular, when you go in when the pan is hot, it creates a nice sear. I'm gonna use canola oil because not all of the dishes I'm making today do I want that, that strong olive oil flavor. So I'm just going with canola oil, which doesn't impart as much flavor. Going with about a tablespoon of that. Okay, and we're going in with the chicken. Hear that nice sear? Means my pan is ready and hot. I didn't get my hands dirty, but when you are working with chicken, please make sure you always wash your hands before you move on to the next thing. I didn't touch anything today, nor do I have a sink here to do that, but you'd always want to make sure you wash your hands when you're working with raw chicken. So I'm just going to give this, even it out in the pan. And while this continues to cook, I'm going to get started on our cancer-fighting, heart-healthy, flavor-adding boost of nutrients that's all wrapped in this beautiful encasing of the onion. Now, an onion is a cousin to garlic. So most dishes, a lot of dishes, commonly start with both onions and garlic. Again, because a lot of people think of them as adding flavor, but they are a vegetable that I highly encourage you to add to your diet. Now I'm just gonna cut, I have 2 large onions in here because we're using onions as one of our 3 ingredients, which means they're gonna be used in 3 recipes. I want a lot of them. So what I'm gonna do is I have a half moon here. I'm just gonna create little lines about the size of the dice that I want, about a 1/2 inch thick. So you see I have it cut that way. And I'm gonna turn it, so I turn it against my knife, and then I'm gonna come down and make little dices. Now the dishes that we are making today, I won't hide it from you anymore. So the first dish is gonna be your traditional chicken Popeye. Everyone loves a good old chicken Popeye. Something about that is such a good comfort food. But of course we're adding a little bit of a bit more of a healthy twist to it. So it's gonna be a little bit lower in fat than your traditional chicken Popeye. And it's gonna be loaded with vegetables, which is gonna be great. And we also went with a skinless chicken breast for a protein. This second recipe, it's going to be a little bit, going to sound a little strange, but it is called pasta ao, and it's something that my father-in-law introduced. We'll talk more about it. Something he introduced me 2 years ago, but it is a combination of chicken, onion, and peas, of course, with a flavor additive in the form of anchovies. I know, sounds different, but we will talk more about that later and why you should definitely try it. And the third and final recipe is a pasta dish, which uses all three of those ingredients again, but it also adds chipotles and adobo sauce, which is a smoky, can be spicy, smoky flavor that what it is jalapenos that are roasted and then smoked. So it gives a smoky, spicy flavor in a creamy sauce with pasta. All right, now while this chicken is finishing, I'm gonna start another pan. And this, I have a stock pot here. This is what I'm going to use to make the roux that is going to be used for the chicken Popeye. So we'll go ahead and get that started. Again, going in with canola oil, just because I don't necessarily want the flavors of olive oil in the Popeye. And I'm going to go in, just because the chicken's taking a little bit, I'm just going to start the onions in here for the chicken Popeye. So I'm going in with about 1/3 of the onions. And you could saute the onions in this same pan, that's also fine. Now I know a lot of people just tend to cook with cooking oil, and you could do that. I prefer just using regular oil in a pour, as you see here. But you could always spray your pan with cooking oil too. That does save any added extra calories and fat. But oil does give you a lot of healthy fats, adds a lot of healthy fats to your diet, which is really important for your hair, your skin, your nails, your whole internal body. So don't cut yourself short on all forms of fat, because not all fat is bad. Well, that finishes off. Let's go over the ingredients for the chicken Popeye. Grab them out of the fridge. We have corn, got some chopped carrots, and of course, because it's one of the stars, we have some peas. So we have about 3/4 of a cup of each. You could add more, you could add less. You could even also get the frozen bag of mixed veggies that comes already done. It's the 5 blend. It's got lima beans, peas, carrots, corn, and I'm drawing a blank on one other one. But you could get the frozen mixed veggies as well and just go with that instead of actually having all the separate bagged veggies. Save yourself a step. But because today is all about peas, I wanted to make sure we kind of highlighted them nicely. So, and how do you not like that color combo right there? If that doesn't scream healthy, I don't know what does. So what I'm going to do with the chicken is I am going to take this chicken out of the pan. You can see we've got some nice caramelization, that brown stuff. That does not burn the chicken burning. That is flavor that's going to go into caramelizing these onions. Now, if you wanted to make this a vegetarian dish, you certainly could. You could just use a veggie stock instead of a chicken stock, and instead of chicken, you could add beans. You don't really need to add beans because peas themselves have a lot of protein as well. So I'm going to go ahead and scoop this chicken out. I'm going to do this a little bit of the easier way. All right, so chicken's out, and again, you see all that nice caramelization at the bottom of the pan. We're going to scrape all those beautiful brown bits up, which eventually I'm going to transfer these onions back in here because that is so much flavor. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more oil to the pan so the onions don't stick. I'm going to go in with these diced onions. And the pieces that are still stuck together, don't worry, I will break them apart as we move them along the pan, around the pan. All right. So once the onions are ready and they're sauteed, what we are going to do is we are going to make a roux. A roux is something that, what a roux is you combine butter with flour and some seasonings, and then you add a liquid. In this case, we're going to add chicken stock, and what it does is it helps thicken that liquid, and you want to make sure you stir it to break up any lumps, but it will help thicken that liquid, and that's what's going to make that kind of that gravy essentially. But when you make chicken Popeye, that's why that when you cut into it and all that wonderful goodness just oozes out, it's thickened chicken stock, or if you make a vegetable chicken Popeye, it's thickened veggie stock. So eventually we're going to get to that point. And with the roux, I am going to use a little bit of butter. Now, I do mostly cook with olive oil, but I do use butter every now and then for certain things. In my opinion, a roux it works well with butter. If you like plant-based butters, you can try that. I'm just using traditional old stick butter that we're going to use again to thicken the sauce. While the onions are sauteing, let's take a moment to talk about the peas and anchovies dish. Because I know it's, like I said, I know it sounds kind of interesting and a lot of people are like, gross, anchovies? Well, let me just tell you, if somebody does not like anchovies and you make this dish for them, they probably will not know they are in there because they just disintegrate as you add them to the hot pan. They just kind of melt all in there, and their form of being an anchovy can be your secret. But it adds such a depth of flavor, it's amazing. And this dish is actually something my father-in-law, like I said earlier, introduced me to. And in Sicily, it was called the poor man's dish because peas were very cheap. In Sicily, they're very common, and they are a great source of protein. They give about 7 to 8 grams a cup of protein per cup of peas. So that's a lot of protein for a veggie. So it's a legume, essentially, so bean. But if you add that to the dish with pasta, and the anchovies are really prevalent in Sicily, and some Parmesan cheese, the caramelized onions, and then add the chicken, which the chicken you wouldn't have added in Sicily, would have just been peas, and the anchovies, the flavors are gonna make your mouth dance. They are just amazing. So while these onions saute, I am going to start the roux. Now you could, if you didn't want to, if you're using a second pan, you could just brown the chicken, take the chicken out, put the onions in, and then do the roux right in that pan. You'll actually get a little more flavor that way because you're gonna scrape up all the bottom, the bits from the bottom. It's gonna give it a nice brown color as well. But because of, just for timing, I'm gonna go ahead and start the roux in this pan. So what I added here was about a tablespoon of butter. Just gonna let that melt. Now another big component of the anchovy, peas, and garlic dish is garlic. I love garlic, and it is the cousin to onions. Just like I mentioned earlier, the nutritional benefits that onions offer, garlic also offers. Heart health, cancer fighting, anti-inflammatory. So just really the importance of eating healthy isn't so much about focusing on what vegetable offers you what as far as your body. You should focus on introducing a wide variety of vegetables to your diet, and a lot of vegetables to your diet. So I always say one of my tips for eating healthy is make at least half your plate, both at lunch and dinner, make them veggies. Whatever form you can find, all veggies offer different nutritional benefits for your body, so it's really important to add them in. So after the butter melts, I'm gonna go in with a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. It's not much. If you wanted to use whole grain or some form of whole grain flour, you certainly could. I just went with regular all-purpose. And I'm gonna go in with poultry seasoning. Now poultry seasoning smells like Thanksgiving. So it really, you can smell the sage. There's all different types of spices in here, and it really does, when you put it in the pan, it smells, like I said, like Thanksgiving. So I went in with 3/4 teaspoon of poultry seasoning. If you didn't have poultry seasoning, you could just use ground sage, maybe a little bit of thyme, a little bit of oregano if you choose to, onion powder, garlic powder. Now, I'm gonna tilt this for a moment. So you can see the flour in there. I'm not gonna be able to keep it like this the whole time, but it'll start kind of forming like almost a little paste all around the onions as the butter and the flour kind of marry together. And that's what's gonna help thicken it. It is important to move the flour around with the butter to form that paste. So you can see a lot of it's on the front of my spoon there. So we have the 2 large diced onions. They are sauteing, they're working together beautifully. What I'm gonna do, because I do want a little bit of this flavor that was in this dish from the chicken cooking in this dish, I'm gonna add this to the chicken pot pie. Just a little bit. Now this roux is ready. I'm gonna go in with chicken stock, which I chose a low sodium chicken stock today. And I'm gonna go in with about 1.5 cups. And I always opt for low sodium chicken stock because, as I say in previous episodes, you can always add more salt, but once you add it, it's hard to take away. So there's 1 cup. Might need to grab the other one from the fridge. Excuse me one moment. All right. So about 1.5 cups, 1.75 cups or so of chicken stock. We're gonna do 1.5 cups and see how that looks. Okay, so about 1.5 cups of chicken broth, chicken stock, low sodium. All right, so what I'm gonna do now as this continues to come to a boil, and I'm gonna come back and stir this every now and then because it is important to stir it to break up those little bits of flour and butter in there. All right, I'm gonna let that kind of cool together. I'm gonna remove half of these onions. All right, so I'm gonna remove half of these onions from the pan because remember, we're saving these for the last dish. So I'm coming in with about a half of the onions into this plate that is gonna be saved for the last dish that we're making. I mean, heck, if you had a cheesesteak night, you could always use these for chicken cheesesteaks or cheesesteaks if you wanted to. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in, this time I'm going with olive oil because we were about to make the dish that I referenced is from Sicily. And olive oil in European dishes is very common. So I'm going a little bit heavier than I would usually with olive oil in this one because that's where all the flavors really come together from it. So I have 3 large cloves of garlic. So it's all minced and ready for you. You could keep this larger if you like. This is minced. You can actually go ahead and vary your size there. So going in with the garlic, I'm gonna just saute this for a moment until it becomes fragrant. And as I said earlier, if you were making this dish without chicken, you would just wanna start with some olive oil, garlic, onions, go ahead and saute them until they're caramelized. Then we're gonna come in with these beautiful babies of anchovies. Anchovies are super healthy. They do have a lot of salt, so you have to be careful if you have high blood pressure, but they are very healthy for you. They have omega-3 fatty acids, they're high in calcium, vitamin D, the list goes on. If you're trying this for the first time and you just wanna go in with 2, that's totally fine. You choose what you like. I'm gonna go in with almost all of them. I'll save a couple. So I'm gonna let them, again, kind of melt. That sounds weird, but they just kind of fall apart and they melt into the pan and into the onions and garlic and just incorporate massive flavor. Now these are canned anchovies. You get them in the canned fish section. They come in about this size. So this is what the anchovies look like. Again, they're canned fish. Like I said, they are high in sodium, a lot of sodium actually. So if you're watching your blood pressure, don't eat this dish too much because it does have a lot of salt. All right, now for this dish, you could use fresh peas because I know the whole purpose is to save you less trips to the grocery store. That's why we stick with these 3 ingredients. But personally for me, I really like the canned peas in this one. So when I buy canned vegetables, I always opt for the low sodium. So I have the low sodium canned peas here. Any brand would really do. A lot of times I even buy the store brand, but I went with canned peas. Do get the no salt added. This one's 50% low sodium, but you get the no salt added just because it's very important to control your sodium, especially when you're cooking with those high salt anchovies. So canned peas, you can see the difference in color here. They're not as bright. Nutritionally, it's kind of similar. Fresh is probably better nutritionally, but the reason I like the canned in this case is because they're creamier. They kind of just fall apart. So I'm gonna add this to this pan. And I often make this as a side dish alone without pasta, without chicken, and I just eat it up like this. I'm gonna add some Parmesan cheese. So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna take a quick break because what I'm gonna wait till this roux thickens and when we come back, I'll show you what consistency you really need. We're gonna wait till this roux thickens. We're gonna have, over the break, because everyone knows how to make pasta, I hope, the directions are on the back of the box. We're gonna make some pasta, which I'm going to add to this. I did choose a protein, fiber-based pasta. We're gonna add that and some chicken to this dish, add some Parmesan cheese, bring it all together, and then we're gonna assemble this chicken Popeye to bring these 2 recipes home. Welcome back. The roux has now thickened. I'm gonna take you a little close up to show you what it looks like. So see the consistency there? It really is similar to gravy. So that's the consistency that you're looking for. Like I said, similar to like a turkey gravy. We just made a chicken gravy. So you really do wanna let this kind of just keep stirring it every now and then, keep it over medium to medium high heat, keep it there for a little bit, just stir it until it really thickens and pulls together. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna finish assembling the pie. So over the break, the producer told me that when I say pot pie, I say Popeye, which I'm trying to make it efficient for you because I'm trying to bring you as much as I can in this 30-minute episode. So I was just trying to save time. I also just talk really fast if you haven't noticed. So the Popeye, we're gonna add 3/4 of a cup of corn, sorry, and I went with the frozen corn. I prefer frozen over canned corn in this case. You could use canned corn if that's all you have. It just tastes a little bit different. And fresh corn on the cob, woo, would that be amazing. Fresh summer corn, just cut off the cob. It's just such an amazing, sweet, crunchy, beautiful thing. All right, and that is a 3/4 of a cup of carrots. And then I have about a cup of our superstar ingredient, the peas. Again, packed with protein, packed with micronutrients, dietary fiber, which is great for controlling blood sugars if you have diabetes. Another reason to eat veggies. I'm gonna go in with about 1/3 of our chicken. And while I'm here with the chicken, I'm gonna add the other 1/3 of the chicken to this dish, which again, you don't need chicken in this dish, but if you wanted to add it, you certainly can. One more bite. There you go. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're just gonna pull this all together. Now, I did taste the gravy over the break. It needed just a little bit of salt. So I'm gonna go in with a little bit more salt, pinch of salt, about a half a teaspoon maybe. And you'll see, look how pretty that is. It really just looks, I could eat it like that, just plain. I'm gonna transfer this chicken to this dish because this is the onions for the final and third dish. I'm gonna take this chicken, pop it in this dish because we are using the plate that I use for the pot pie. I have a Pyrex dish, so any kind of baking dish will do. You could use a pie plate. You could also use cute little ramekins if you wanted to. And I'm just gonna go in with a little bit of oil on the bottom. A spray oil would work great. I'm just gonna mix that in with my hands and then wipe them off. Okay, pie crust. You could use phyllo dough if you wanted to save extra calories and fat. I just got a store-bought pie crust. It's important to take this out of the fridge about an hour before you're ready to work with it. Otherwise, you're gonna try and peel it, unroll it, and it's gonna break. So you could also get the traditional pie crust that's already ready in the little pie plate you buy from the store in the aluminum foil. Look how beautiful that looks. Oh gosh, I love chicken pot pie. It's just such a good comfort food. But you could buy pie crust already in the little pie plate, the aluminum pie plate, and just use it like that and then top it with another pie crust. I'm opting for one pie crust just because the pie crust does add a lot of calories. That's fat and calories. Again, just saving time for efficiency. It adds a lot of fat and calories. So by topping the chicken pot pie with one pie crust, you get all that amazing pie crust flavor without all of the added, about half the added calories and fat. So I'm gonna go ahead and just press this down and you'll see the edges kind of overlap. So what I do, grab a knife. There we go, we'll use this one. Okay, so take a knife and I'm just gonna run my knife right along the edges of the pie crust to take this excess off. If you really liked pie crust, you could just fold this down and leave it. I just want it to look semi-pretty. I cut a little bit too close on that side. This would be a good project for the kids to do. You know, I'm always about getting the kids involved in the kitchen. And what kid does not love chicken pot pie, by the way? If you know one, I want to meet one because I don't know any that don't. What you're gonna do is you're gonna want to vent your pie crust. So I'm gonna just put a couple slits in it. And we have another one already made as well, but I'm gonna pop this in the oven at 375 for about 20 minutes. Keep an eye on it because you don't want the crust to burn, and everyone's oven does cook different. So keep an eye on it, don't totally trust it. I'm gonna pop this in the oven. Again, preheated at 375 for about 20-25 minutes. Before we take a break to go make our last dish, let's try this anchovy peas and pasta because it smells fantastic. All right, so we added the 1/3 of the chicken in here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in with some pasta. I went with a bow tie pasta for this recipe. I chose a whole grain protein pasta, again, just to add more protein to this dish. Throw the rest in there. I missed two. Can't leave these little bow ties behind. And you can choose whatever pasta you have. You could choose regular spaghetti, you could choose tiny little pasta, whatever fits your pasta world fantasies. There we go. I'm shooting stuff around. And then the final and last ingredient is Parmesan cheese. So I'm gonna go in with, let's say about a half a cup of Parmesan cheese, 1/3. And I know I said earlier, I'm using a lot of olive oil because this is a Sicilian dish. So I'm just gonna go with a little bit more olive oil. And for a little bit more of that anchovy flavor, the oil that your anchovies came in. This is like liquid gold with a lot of salt. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of that in there. And then I'll make pizza and I'll use those anchovies for it. All right, so let's just give this a quick stir. And I am so excited to try this. So I'm gonna get some of the onions, some of the pasta, the anchovies. You don't even know they're in there, so I don't have to look for them because I have disguised them as sauce. A beautiful, salty, delicious, wonderful sauce. All right, little sprinkling of Parmesan on top. And there she is. All right, let's give this a taste. I'm so excited. I'm gonna put it down because I'm afraid I'm gonna like go all at it and just drop it. All right, so what I do is I go ahead and take my fork, get some peas and onions on there, stab a little chicken, a little pasta. That is so flavorful. I really hope you don't get scared away by the anchovies in this dish because I encourage you to try it. It is so amazing that I'm gonna have to take another bite and then go to a break so we can come back and finish up that last dish and start our third one. So see you later. All right, everyone, it is time to bring this amazing trio of flavors, these recipes, home by bringing this last recipe to you. So we have the chicken and the onions that we cooked earlier. And to that, we are going to add some chicken stock. Now, I did misspeak earlier. I told you we were doing a chipotle sauce over pasta. We are not. We're doing it over couscous. So we're gonna go in with the chicken stock, about a half a cup. And again, all those flavors from, that's a little bit more than a half a cup, but all those flavors from the bottom of the pan, because I'm using the same pan that I cooked the chicken in, are gonna pull up into that chicken broth and make it even more flavorful. So while this works together, I am going to go grab that chicken Popeye, which smells like Thanksgiving dinner in here. So let's go ahead and do that. It smells so good. The butteriness from the pie crust, the golden brown color. Actually, let me have you take a sneak peek. Make sure I got a good grip on it. So look at how beautiful the pie crust is. The gravy kind of oozes out the corners and through the holes that we punctured on the top. And we'll take a better look at that in a minute. I'm pulling that out because what I want to do is I want to give it a chance to rest, because as it's resting, what happens is the liquid that is really hot right now, number one, won't burn my mouth when I go to taste it, but number two, it'll make the dish a little bit firmer when I go ahead and cut into the Popeye, which is important. So just give it about 20 minutes to really rest. We're not going to have 20 today, but if you're making it at home, maybe give it about 10 to 20 minutes to let it rest. So I'm going to go ahead and stir this around, really pulling up the bits. You can actually see, if you look in there, you can see the color from the chicken stock is already dark brown because of the brown bits from the bottom of the pan that are coming up. To add more color to that though, does not stop there. This is a secret ingredient that is going to add a little bit of heat, so you could omit this part if you wanted to, but so much flavor. These are chipotle peppers in adobo sauce. Smoky, spicy, delicious. But again, they are spicy, and a little bit goes a long way. So I'm gonna add, the sauce itself is really good. So I'm gonna go ahead and go in, and you can see some of the peppers, the seeds from the peppers. I'm gonna go ahead and add in about a tablespoon of the sauce. If you're not really crazy about spicy, you just want a little bit of the spice, a little bit of the smoke, you could just stop at the liquid. And this, you can keep kind of adding this to fit whatever flavor, you can keep adding this to fit whatever flavor preferences really work for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and take one of the peppers out. And again, this is a smoked pepper. If my memory serves me correct, I think they're jalapenos, smoked jalapeno peppers. I'm gonna give this a quick little chop. And you'll see I'm keeping this hand up because I have contacts in, and there's been times where I've cut peppers before and I go to take my contacts at the end of the day and wowzers, that hurts. So a lot of times when I'm working with fresh peppers from my garden or what have you, I always wear gloves just because it's gotten me before. So you can just smell the smokiness that's coming from the peppers and just that little bit of addition. Again, you can add more. The sauce is starting to turn like a little bit of a red hue. I want to teach you a little trick. These peppers, while flavorful, you only need a little bit to go a long way. Unless you like a lot of heat, a lot of smokiness, which you could add more. What I do is I buy one can when I need it, and I put it into a Ziploc bag. And I do this with a lot of things. I'll do this with pesto if I get pesto, or if I make pesto. I'll empty the can into a Ziploc bag, kind of flatten it out a little bit, and then I just fold it over. This is a kind of a giant Ziploc bag. You don't need this big of a Ziploc bag. But again, this works for a lot of stuff. Tomato paste is another thing that you usually use a little bit of, but you don't need the whole can. So I'll do this with this. So what I do is I pop this in my freezer flat. It freezes, and then when I'm ready to use it, I can just pop off a little corner instead of buying a whole new can. So this is a great way to get a lot of value for your money and make sure you always have those amazing ingredients on hand. So we're gonna pop that in the freezer for another day. That would also be a good addition to chili, by the way. Chili's an adobo sauce. So these flavors coming together. The final addition is Greek yogurt. I'm always about saving calories and saving fat. Greek yogurt is a substitute I use all the time for creaminess, whether I'm doing it in a dressing or in place of sour cream with chili, in place of mayonnaise. I almost forgot one of our special guests, the peas. I was like, why is this so boring? Where's the color? So we're gonna go in with the peas real quick. There she blows. Look at that beautiful color. I was wondering what I was missing. I'm so sorry, peas. Okay, they're in. I'm gonna let them warm up a little bit, and I'm gonna talk about the couscous. Couscous, I went with a garlic couscous. You could get a plain couscous, whatever you like. I would get something that you're thinking is gonna pair well with these flavors. Don't choose anything too crazy. A Parmesan flavored couscous would be good. Again, a plain couscous would be good because you already have a lot of flavor going on. I went with a roasted garlic couscous. Couscous is simple, easy to prepare. You just add the couscous to whatever, look on the back of the box, whatever measurement amount of water it tells you to use. You add the couscous to the boiling water, turn off the heat, lid it, and let it sit however long the box tells you to, usually about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the brand. So what we're gonna do is once this sauce is ready, I'm gonna pour this into the couscous, and it's gonna find its way through all those little nooks and crannies of couscous goodness. All right. So the peas are warmed through. I'm going in with the Greek yogurt. Again, taking it off that heat. And I'm just gonna fold this yogurt in. And this is a non-fat Greek yogurt. Do not choose a vanilla flavored Greek yogurt. That would not pair so well. Just a plain old non-fat Greek yogurt. Store brand's fine. If you have a certain brand that you like, go with that brand. I always, always, always have this in my fridge at all times. So we're gonna to that to add a little bit more punch of flavor. We're going with some more Parmesan cheese from our pasta recipe from earlier. So let's go in with about half a cup or so of Parmesan. And we're just gonna give this a little stir. I'm gonna go ahead and tilt this towards you. You'll see it just kind of fold into this beautiful, creamy, I don't even know how to describe the orange, beautiful, smoky sauce that's happening right there. And you can see, here's some pieces of the chipotle pepper. So there you go. That's what it looks like. So what we're gonna do, this is done really. And again, you'll notice I didn't really season a lot. I'm gonna go in with a pinch of salt and pepper, not much, because remember, we did season the chicken earlier. So just a little, like I need more pepper, right? A little bit of salt. All right, let's spoon some of this over the couscous. Ready for this? All right, now you're gonna watch. Actually, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put this right here so you can get a nice angle of all those juices kind of just falling down into the bottom of the couscous. So it's kind of like, it was a little saucy, so we may want to add about half, but it's going to be so good. It's almost like a little couscous chipotle soup. To finish this off, however, I'm going to add some sliced scallions really quick. So when I slice my scallions, I remove the bottoms, I remove the tops just because they're not as, sometimes they look a little not so great. And I usually go ahead and fold them or stack them up, give them a nice dice. Some are rolling off to the back. Thank you to whoever cleans the set because I made a mess. I'm sorry. All right, so we're going in with the, gonna go ahead in with the scallions and just top them on there. They kind of get lost with the color, but they're gonna add flavor. So I'm gonna go ahead and try this. Get some of that, let me pull this up here. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and try this. So I have some of the couscous from the bottom here. I'm gonna put that on. I'm gonna go on the side, get some of the peas, scallions. All right. Let's give this a whirl. We'll go with the fork. Tough decisions. I didn't know if I wanted a fork or a spoon. All right, so I got some couscous. Here she goes. I want to make sure I got a little chipotle pepper on there. See that little flake at the end? Okay, here it goes. The creamy flavor and the smokiness together is so good. And the best part is the creaminess comes with little to no calories and added calcium and vitamin D from the yogurt. There's a lot happening in my mouth right now. It's a little spicy, but it tastes really, really good. Last up for today is our Popeye. Not pot pie, this is a Popeye. So if you make a pot pie, I don't have a recipe for you. But we're gonna go for a pot pie, which is it's cooled down. Let's go ahead and give this a taste. Here she goes. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut a corner. There's a lot of different flavors happening today, which is why these are so great because it doesn't feel like you're eating the same 3 foods over and over again. Each dish is different and unique. I didn't go with a really big platter because I'm gonna go back and eat everything else, but you can see the chicken, the veggies, everything is really all encapsulated in that wonderful gravy we made. So let me go ahead and take a bite. My palate's really confused because I went from anchovies, the salty anchovies and cheese, to chipotle, to Popeye. These dishes aren't meant to go together, but they are all in their own amazing. And I truly hope that you take the time to add these dishes to your family favorites. And remember, you're not cooking in style unless you're cooking family style.